Alright folks, Acid Roots here. It's time for part 17 of Let's Play Donkey Kong Country 2. And I would say that this is the episode before the penultimate episode. You're definitely going to get to the final boss in this episode, but there's also going to be a lot of trial and error. So I wanted to show some of it just because the sheer amount. I mean, certain times Let's Plays can be funny when you get stuck on like a stage, but it's actually like an addicting stage and it takes you like 20 or 30 minutes to do, and that's kind of what happened, only with the final boss. So I kind of felt like, just strap yourselves in. It's going to be kind of frustrating. You'll probably get frustrated with it and like, damn, hurry up already. But it's not going to happen in this episode or probably the next episode either. So I'm going to have a disclaimer in part 18 because I think that entire episode is just going to be the final boss fight. So, I mean, I do wind up beating the final boss pretty early in like the third gameplay segment I have recorded. So, but there's at least another 20 minutes worth of this fight. But for now, we're going to finish up the last actual level that you will see in the game minus the boss. So, at least that I'm going to show. So there's still, keep in mind, there still are two more Lost World stages after this, and I remember one of them is at least Animal Antics, so that's where you have to use all your animal buddies. You don't actually use the chimps at all, minus like the beginning segment or something, but for the most part you just have to master the ability to use all of your animal pals. So that's what happens there. But these Lost World stages are really not so much about actually using the chimps to get through the stage as much as they have like special gimmicks that are probably too tough for the regular game. That's kind of the thing there. So, but honestly, here's the thing. I mean, there is not much bonuses, but they always include at least one kind of bonus barrel that has the hero coin in it. So that's the situation there. And these barrel enemies, they're bastards. They have all of them in here. The ones you want to make sure no matter what that you avoid are the black ones because they will take lives from you. That's kind of the situation. So if you don't get them back quickly enough, they're just gone. It's basically like you died, but you didn't die. So the reality of it is you can die like 3 or 4 times in a stage just from getting hit by one of those guys and just with one life. So avoid them, in other words. So I'm gonna have to pause real quick because my cat wants attention, so I gotta break away from this. Alright, so I'm gonna have to pay attention to my cat after this. So, yeah, she's been sleeping, in my room, and she was nearby when I was doing this, so she likes doing Let's Plays with me, but I feel like the commentary might be kind of distracted, so we will. But yeah, so basically, I mean, really, the thing about this stage is it uses, like, the monkey barrels, so you're gonna be seeing, like, the Diddy and Dixie barrels that, unless you're controlling that particular chimp, is the only way that you can use that barrel. So thing about it is, if you want to get 100% in this game, you have to do this stage without getting hit, because, or at least you want to have it be Diddy Kong that does not get hit, just because that's the only way you're going to get the bonus barrel. And of course I use Dixie. I mean, the game is pretty smart just because it tries to get you to use Dixie first, even though Dixie is basically the one that you want to save, just because of her helicopter technique. This makes it that much easier, but the game knows that, so it tries to make it trickier for you by using Diddy first. So you'll find that in the later stages in the game. Definitely the final boss fight and the Lost World stages will utilize that, where they're trying to get you to save Diddy rather than save Dixie for later, because they know it's easier with Dixie. But alright, so that's about it. I'm going to save, and then we will head to the final boss, which I'm going to be playing for the next 3 episodes. So, I'm just trying to kind of figure out. So basically I had to get some coins also. That was another thing. Luckily I had them this time, but Donkey Kong is kind of a bastard. I mean, it's like I've said before, is he knows the exact times as to when you're going to have to use the ship. So Donkey Kong's getting tormented a bit. I like that they added that. I mean, if you die, they don't show that every single time, but at least the first time you fight him, they do show the boss tormenting Donkey Kong. So it's a nice little extra. I probably wouldn't have remembered that unless I was doing an LP of it. If I would have just played through my file that I had already beaten, I wouldn't have seen that. So, but I like those little bonus segments. This game kind of had more storyline in it than the first Donkey Kong Country, but it's not by much. I mean, it was still pretty like stark in terms of storyline. I mean, most Super Nintendo games were like that, but you kind of wish that there were like interludes and like gameplay segments. I mean, the PlayStation 1 was definitely extremely good about including like plot development points to kind of progress the storyline that couldn't be shown just with regular gameplay. But they don't, I mean, obviously, back in the Super Nintendo games they didn't do it, but it is a nice trick. That's why I like Chrono Trigger more for the PlayStation. I tried doing a project for Chrono Trigger for the Super Nintendo, but I think when I finally do that game again, it's going to be for the PS1, just because there's anime sequences and that sort of stuff. It's just better on the PlayStation, and I recommend that for the most part. I'd say, depending upon how I felt about the other Final Fantasy games, I would almost do those on the PlayStation also, because they come with cinema sequences that make it better. I mean, unless you're just going for completion's sake. I mean, the thing about it is, like a game like Final Fantasy VI, the script is, of course, different. I mean, I don't know if, Sony doesn't care about, like, cursing and alcohol and sex and stuff, but Nintendo is a little bit different. So maybe Final Fantasy VI for the PlayStation was more dark and mature. I would almost hope that it was. I mean, I would do that version of the game if I knew that to be true, but there actually were some things anime wasn't really around back in like 1994 in America, but there were still edits from those type games back in the 90s that they knew of. That's kind of the thing. I mean, you never encountered that with like Super Mario World and Donkey Kong Country, but with Final Fantasy they did do that. So it's fun. Those are just typical games to kind of have with that sort of setting. But I don't know how much they do that now. It's just kind of funny. I really don't like censorship. If you know me from my vlog channel on Acidic Roots, I talk about how I don't like the censorship there. And that's just YouTube doing that crap, pulling those stunts. But, yeah. So it's just kind of... I always try to get the regular edit of the game that's not censored and dubbed or whatever. But yeah, so back to the game. What you just saw right there, I made it to the last thing in the whole game. I mean, you have to hit this guy, you have to throw the cannonball in his gun 9 times, and I did it 8 times successfully before that last attempt, so I almost beat him right in that episode. That's what I was expecting to do. I didn't realize that this was going to be that tough, because it really is extreme. The difficulty gets ramped up like at least 40 or 50% just within this one fight, and even more so just within the last segment of this fight. Really, the 9th cannonball that you have to throw into his gun is the worst in the whole game. This is the worst segment. It's worse than Chain Link Chamber. It's worse than probably just about everything minus the second final boss fight. But it just really started, I started losing my composure a bit just because this game pissed me off. I just wasn't expecting that. I was like, what the fuck, I figured this boss was going to be a cakewalk. I thought I could still handle it. I thought, well, if it gave me trouble when I was 7 and 8, certainly when I'm 32, I should be able to swim through this, but I was wrong. I got through on the skin of my teeth, and I was getting mad. I was just like, fuck it. I was pretty livid, but that's just the thing. I was not expecting this game to pull out the stops like that just out of nowhere. It really turned into a nasty kind of situation. But yeah, so one more episode of this, and then, like I said, you could probably skip to part 19 to get to the good part, but it's probably going to be a little bit in October before we get to that. So also enjoy Crash Team Racing, because there's more of that coming, and we're just going to have some fun with it. But yeah, so in a detail, if you are trying to skip, I would recommend that you use Dixie Kong for most of this fight. I mean, you can probably the first 4, 5, or 6 cannonballs you can use Diddy, but Dixie just makes this so much easier, and she's the only one, to my knowledge, that can dodge like those gas attacks, like the purple, red, and blue ones. I mean, otherwise it's just next to impossible. I would really, that's a standing ovation kind of person that can do those gas attacks with Diddy Kong. I'll tell you that right now. that's as extreme as you can get. So, at least in the concept of this game. I mean, there's speed runs and shit. You've seen some skilled gamers on YouTube, surely. So, but yeah, so this game turns pretty nasty. Really didn't like it. Kind of pissed me off. I was like, hey, this whole game was pleasant. The whole thing, it was a completely different veneer about it that I just was not expecting. This really turned into. I started getting more and more mad, and it kind of broke my composure, but so I mean, I like the background in this stage, also all the stuff that is kind of in his ship. It's interesting. He still is obsessed with these guys as bananas, so he still I think they don't really talk about it in this game as much, but I still think it's a neat little bonus feature to say he still kind of wants the bananas, because that was the whole point of the first game, was he was stealing Donkey Kong's banana hoard, and he wanted them for whatever reason. But to see a few here, it's like, hey, it's a nice little, it's not even a secondary feature, because it's just never mentioned in any concept of the game, but to say he does want those is slick. So nice added bonus. But I mean, really, the boss fights for the most part in this game, minus this one, are outdoors. So that's another thing. There is, I think, like the crow boss, you fight in like the crow's nest. That's kind of a pun on that. That's why that happens. So yeah, most of those fights are outdoors. But yeah, I really didn't utilize the rest of the Kongs beyond like the save point and then the flight barrel to get to different worlds. And there are some extra things, like you can play like a game show, or you can win some extra lives if you have the money to do it and you have enough knowledge about the game. But I think there's at least that. In the third game, you can do even more mini games and stuff and actually win extras, but it was at least a start to be able to have some bonus stuff just to try out this time. So I just didn't see the point. I don't really need the lives. I could beat this game. At least I thought I could beat this game minus this boss. I mean, this is not something I ever want to do again. I mean, I did it back in 1997, but not so much. I played through this game at least 3 times in my life, and I don't really want to do it again. I mean, I can play it casually, just play the stages that I've already beaten, but for the most part, I am not interested in trying to beat this game even 100% again. That would really piss me off. So, but it is a classic. I mean, despite what I'm saying about it, it is a bona fide classic. So, but we're almost at the end of this episode. Use Dixie Kong here. I didn't realize that, but alright, so subscribe for more fun. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful night, and I'll see you in part 18, which is just going to be more of this stuff.